The 2025 draft class truly has it all. Impact players on 50-win teams, athletic freaks, high-level defenders, an all-time great shooter, and a bona fide superstar in the making. Those last two are in the midst of one of the best Rookie of the Year debates we've seen in a long time. On one hand, Kon Knueppel is playing a pivotal role for an elite offensive team that's in position to make the playoffs, and doing things that no rookie has ever done. On the other, Cooper Flagg's been asked to carry a franchise and is pulling off feats that land him next to names like LeBron James and Wilt Chamberlain. So how do we separate the two? Who's had the more impressive season? And which one deserves Rookie of the Year? In this video brought to you by PrizePicks, we're going to try to get to the bottom of it. But before we do that, we first have to define what it actually means to be the Rookie of the Year. Award season tends to be about recognizing players who produce the most on-court value. Defensive Player of the Year goes to the most valuable defender. Sixth Man of the Year goes to the most valuable bench player. Most Improved goes to the player who made the most valuable improvement. And MVP? Well, I think you get the idea. Rookie of the Year, though, has never been just about impact. And that's because players in year one typically aren't expected to move the needle in any meaningful way. By nature of a lottery draft system, the best prospects get funneled to the worst teams. Some are expected to carry immense responsibility right away. But for most, this is their first time sharing the court with NBA level athletes. And I can't stress enough how large that difference is. They're bigger, faster, stronger. They change directions quicker. They cover an immense amount of ground in split seconds. And most importantly, they're smarter. They've seen the NBA game. They went through their own learning process and development curve. At one point, they were the 20-year-olds just trying to figure it out. The reason I bring this up is because an overwhelming amount of rookies aren't what you'd call NBA ready. Even some of the more impressive rookie campaigns came with lots of missed shots, turnovers, and defensive errors for 30-win teams. If Rookie of the Year was exclusively about impact like other awards, it'd be disproportionately funneled to later draft picks who aren't expected to carry as much responsibility. 7-foot rim protectors who come off the bench for playoff teams. Athletic defenders who share most of their minutes with offensive superstars. They're more valuable as a result of not being put in positions to make negative plays. And historical precedent tends to favor those who are forced to do more with less. In July of 2022, the Utah Jazz traded for the draft rights to Walker Kessler, who during his sophomore season at Auburn did three things extremely well. He blocked shots, he cleaned the glass, and he finished plays at the rim. Naturally, the Jazz asked him to do exactly that. He came off the bench as a sort of replacement for Rudy Gobert, either screening and rolling or playing from the dunker on offense and dropping back to protect the paint on defense. Just like in college, he thrived within this role, so much so that Utah actually won his minutes comfortably, and by the end of the season, he'd earned a spot starting at the 5. The result? 2 first-place votes. The other 98 went to the number 1 overall pick, Paolo Banchero. He stepped into a tumultuous situation in Orlando and immediately became their lead ball handler. With little teammate help or space to operate, he was expected to self-create almost all of his offense. He wasn't the most efficient, and the Magic comfortably lost his minutes, but he stuffed the stat sheet, hit impressive heights, and had superstar-esque flashes, which voters felt led to the more complete overall season. And 2023 wasn't the only race that followed this exact script. You could look as recently as last year. Donovan Clingan didn't make it onto a single ballot despite popping as a super impactful rookie in most metrics, using his size, length, and instincts to anchor Portland's top 10 half-court defense. Same thing with Zach Edey. He started almost every game he played in and made a clearly positive impact for a Grizzlies team that nearly won 50 games. He didn't receive a single first-place vote. Stephon Castle was the guy who fit the mold of what voters look for. He carried a large offensive load, displayed star-like qualities such as high-level slashing and passing, while showcasing serious potential as a primary point of attack defender. So despite struggling with shooting efficiency and turnovers for a 34-win team, he dominated the race with 92% of first-place votes. All that's to say, while value can be an important factor in determining Rookie of the Year, it's only one of many. Age, team circumstances, role, historic implications, and flashes are a few others. Because at the end of the day, what we're trying to find is the most impressive rookie season. But has that been Cooper Flagg or Kon Knueppel? Before we get into that, I want to give a huge shout out to PrizePicks for sponsoring today's video. If you know you can play responsibly and you have the means to do so, PrizePicks is America's #1 app for sports picks. So if you're looking for a place to get started with playoff basketball right around the corner, use code HMA and get started. Today, we've got a potential playoff preview between the Knicks and the Celtics, and this is Tatum's first time back in New York since his return, so I'm expecting him to be aggressive. Considering how they like to defend him and the way he's looked recently, I'm taking him for more than 19.5 points. We've also got a duel between the Raptors and the Heat with serious playoff implications. Scotty's played Miami well all year and just had 25 against them 2 nights ago. I like him for more than 17.5. It's that simple. Find the stat you want, pick more or less, and you've got your lineup. If you sign up for Prize Picks with code HMA and play $5, you get $50 in lineups. So download the app or click the link in the description to get started, and let me hear your picks down in the comments. As for the rookie convo, it's worth noting that Cooper was originally supposed to be a part of this upcoming 2026 class. He played the first 2 months of this season at 18 years old, and as things currently stand, he's the youngest player in the league. That didn't stop Dallas from throwing him into the fire and expecting him to figure things out from day one. He's been their lead ball handler all season. He's the one who has to initiate the offense, create advantages from a standstill, and get everyone involved as a creator. But between injuries, trades, and a lackluster roster, there's basically nothing going on to make his life easier. As a team, the Mavs are 29th in the NBA in both three-point rate and efficiency, and it shows. Defenses don't respect them. The only guys on the team who demand attention on the perimeter are Klay Thompson, Max Christie, and Chris Middleton, who they acquired mid-season. Over the course of the entire year, Flagg's played about 18.5% of his minutes in lineups featuring at least 2 of them. Think about that for a sec. That means that in over 81% of Flagg's time on the court, there's at most one guy by his side who defenses have to respect on the three-point line. Like I mentioned earlier though, he's expected to initiate and create almost all of his offense with the ball, so he's forced to navigate tighter spaces as a ball handler, get to the basket with multiple helpers tracking his every move, and even if he makes the right read on a kickout, there's a pretty good chance it's not going to lead to points. However, what's made his rookie campaign so impressive has been his ability to get it out of the mud. As a downhill creator, it's not easy to operate with limited space. His handle has really grown throughout this season, getting more comfortable against pressure or when taking an extra dribble or 2 through traffic, and when paired with his length and athleticism, that helps him consistently get to pressure points inside the defense. Once there, he's got counters. He can finish vertically, he can make a wide variety of passes without turning the ball over, and maybe most importantly, he's a mid-range assassin in the making. On the season, he's taking over 9 mid-range shots every 75 possessions at a 43.5% clip. Considering the degree of difficulty, versatility, and that he's still developing, this is a legitimate superpower, and it puts him in position to hit the heights that he does. In his 45-point game against the Lakers, he shot 10 of 19 from mid-range. It takes serious skill to even get 19 mid-range shots up, let alone make half of them. 2 nights before that, in his 51-point game against Orlando, he shot 11 of 16 from mid-range. Maybe his most impressive mid-range scoring performance, though, came against San Antonio a couple months ago. With Wemby camped out in the paint, he had to improvise, and that meant painting the short mid-range with all types of different buckets. Turnaround jumpers, floaters, quick trigger pull-ups, bump middies, using his size, athleticism, footwork, and pace to get as close to the basket as possible, then getting the ball up over Victor's rim protection time and time again. He finished with 32 points, and 20 of them came from the mid-range, 10 of 18 shooting. All in all, he's made 51.5% of his 2-pointers on the season, which, given the context, makes you think about what that'll look like as he puts on some more muscle, figures out how to counter different defensive looks, and the situation around him improves. There are still some limitations for right now though, most notably the complete lack of a 3-point shot. In order to reach that next level as a creator, he's gonna have to unlock the pull-up 3 as a respectable counter. Right now, that's a 30% shot for him, which allows defenses to get away with softer coverages. He also doesn't have a strong free throw rate relative to how much pressure he puts on the basket, so while he's someone who can light up the box score and generate tons of offensive volume, the night-to-night efficiency isn't quite there yet. On the season, he's about 3% below the league average true shooting, and while his circumstances certainly play a role in that, there's not much in his profile to suggest that he could effectively scale down. His size and athleticism as a cutter definitely help, and he's a monster in transition, so he could find some value that way, but the lack of a 3-point shot really caps how much he'd be able to improve possessions without the ball, which is a very stark difference from what you get with Kon Knueppel. Knueppel and Flagg couldn't possibly be in more different situations. Whereas Dallas is a bottom-tier three-point shooting team, the Hornets are second in the league in three-point rate and third in percentage. Their scheme is built around outgunning opponents from the perimeter, and while Knueppel plays a huge role in that, so do LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, Kobe White, and plenty of other guys who can hit their open threes consistently. It isn't just the shooting though. Under Charles Lee, they've gone to plenty of high-level offensive concepts, using guards as screeners, manipulating space with creative floor alignments, and keeping off-ball defenders engaged with constant movement. More importantly though, almost everyone in their rotation can dribble the ball and pass, so they're incredible at extending advantages off the catch and getting everyone involved. It also means that there's basically never going to be a lineup where Knueppel's expected to be his team's primary ball handler. If LaMelo's on the court, he's the primary initiator. If he isn't, it's one of Brandon Miller, Miles Bridges, Kobe White, or Colin Sexton before he got traded. You'll see Kon run some pick and roll, but for the most part, his usage is structured around his off-ball play, spotting up on the perimeter, curling around screens and receiving handoffs, or screening for the ball himself. However, I think a lot of people are penalizing him for this instead of appreciating how impressive it is for him to thrive in that role. Everything that makes the Hornets a great offense is built around his unique skill set. So while he might not be the guy with the ball in his hands, he's somehow involved in almost every possession. Sometimes it's subtle involvement, spacing the floor and making it more difficult to bring help. But sometimes it's more direct, setting an effective screen, rolling into the paint, and making a quick extra pass to connect the offense. There's no shortage of ways he can be used to maximize plays, and that's because he's already on a short list of the most dynamic off-ball players on the planet. That starts with his shooting. He's made 268 threes so far this season, the most of any player. And not only is he on pace to become the first rookie in NBA history to lead the league in threes, he's having one of the best outside shooting seasons ever. With averages of 43% from three and just under 8 attempts a game, we're talking about extremely rare air. It's been done 4 times. Steph did it in 2015, again in 2016, and again in 2019, only to be joined in 2020 by Duncan Robinson. But Knueppel's touch isn't exclusive to threes. His float game is elite, which makes him a more dangerous screener because he's not only a threat to pop, he's also got a pretty high-level mid-range game, so in the rare event he gets chased off the line, he can still torch defenses as a shot maker. In addition to the three-point shooting, he's made almost 55% of his twos, and he's taking about 5.5 a game. Of that group I just mentioned, the only guy to reach those marks was Steph Curry once when he won the MVP unanimously. Needless to say, Knueppel is unbelievably efficient. He's one of only 7 players in the NBA averaging at least 18 points a game on 64% true shooting, which is somehow just as unprecedented among rookies as his world-class three-point shot. If we take a look at the most efficient rookie seasons ever among players who scored over 18 points, not only is Knueppel in a class of his own, the names behind him are either big athletic paint scorers or Hall of Fame wings like Adrian Dantley, Magic Johnson, and Michael Jordan. What if we lower the threshold though? Kon's current campaign would be the most efficient rookie season since 1947 at 17 points a game, and 16, and 15, 14, 13. It's not until you get to 12 points a game that you finally find one rookie who surpassed his efficiency. Brandon Clark in 2020. Of course, it's important to note that the league as a whole has become more efficient, but he's still 6% above that league average mark, which means he's 9% higher than Cooper Flagg. What I don't think people realize though is how many different ways he's doing it. He isn't just making open threes. He's in the 94th percentile in efficiency as an on-ball creator, 91st in off-ball shooting situations, and in the 99th percentile as a play finisher around the basket, as a 20-year-old. So between his own scoring production and the different ways in which he opens up Charlotte's offense with his movement, positioning, and scoring threat, you could make the argument that he's been their most valuable player. At worst, second or third. And the reason this is such a big deal is because since January 1st, we're working with a 4-month sample of the Hornets being one of the most efficient offenses in NBA history. They're first in the league with an offensive rating of 122. I can't stress this enough. We've never seen anything like this. Rookies don't get drafted 4th overall and play arguably the most important role on a team becoming the #1 offense. It just doesn't happen. So while I don't think Knueppel could replicate what Flagg's done as an on-ball creator, you could just as easily flip that conversation on its head. Not only has Flagg struggled with off-the-dribble threes, he's at the bottom of the league in both catch and shoot and wide open situations. The three-point shot just isn't there yet. He also isn't the screener, off-ball mover, or connector that Knueppel is, so it's harder to imagine what this version of Flagg would look like playing a critical role for the #1 offense, or if it would even be possible. However, that doesn't mean you can't still make an overwhelmingly strong case for Coop. Earlier, I used the word impressive to describe how the Rookie of the Year has historically been given out. That's completely subjective. It all comes down to what you value more, and Flagg's argument is structured around those superstar-esque performances. The peaks he's hit throughout the season have been matched by very few rookies and even fewer teenagers. Just this week, he scored 96 points over a 2-game stretch, making him the first rookie to do so since Wilt Chamberlain. And during those matchups, you could see the ceiling, absolutely torching aggressive defensive coverages as a mid-range shot maker, applying constant downhill pressure, and making all of the right reads to get his teammates involved. There was also a stretch from late January to early February where he dropped 49 on Knueppel's Hornets, then followed it with 34 against the Rockets, 36 against the Celtics, and that 32-point game against the Spurs. We've seen enough from Flagg this year to project him becoming a tier 1 superstar, but it's important to make the distinction between flashes and consistent value. It took him a few weeks to hit his stride. For every peak, you've got a valley, like the 2 games before this most recent stretch where he shot a combined 11 of 38 from the field, or just a couple nights ago shooting 9 of 25 in a loss to the Clippers. He's still figuring it out, and I think it's hard not to reward Knueppel for having it figured out right away. Not only has he had the more impactful and complete overall rookie season, he's had one of the most valuable rookie seasons ever. If we look at a few notable metrics that use tracking data, the box score, and plus-minus indicators to estimate a player's impact per 100 possessions, he's already knocking on the door of All-Star, or dare I say All-NBA conversations. But it's more than that. His season has been just as, if not more, historic. For all of Flagg's single-game record-setting, Kon's had season-long records related to his shooting and overall scoring efficiency. And if you're someone who's split 50-50, I think a valid tiebreaker would be that he's only missed 1 game while Flagg's battled some injuries. Kon's been the most consistent presence for a team that's got a great chance to make the playoffs. He's completely shifted Charlotte's offense and rewritten their future. So like I said, it really comes down to what you value. If you lean towards historic single-game performances, higher peaks, and superstar flashes, you'll probably go with Cooper Flagg. If you lean towards impact on winning right now and the overall completeness of a rookie season from start to finish, you'll probably go with Kon Knueppel. Personally, that's where I tend to lean. You just don't see rookies come into the league and immediately play such a big role for an elite team offense. He's already on a short list of not only players with the best shooting talent, but overall off-ball skill set. And I think that would translate to impactful basketball on literally any team in the league. Maybe Flagg could do the same for a playoff team though. Who knows? And that's what makes this race so compelling. 2 guys in completely different situations, playing completely different roles with completely different strengths and weaknesses. Should Rookie of the Year go to an off-ball savant or an on-ball superstar in the making?